Wednesday morning quarterbacking for Court TV. Let me ask you this. We see him there going from a deposition. Interesting point there about the practice of law in Florida in criminal cases. Now, here in New York, you get to do that in civil cases, but not in criminal cases. You get to depose witnesses. You get to talk to them, interview them prior to trial. Interesting difference, important difference in a case like that. Helps out a defense attorney, helps out all the lawyers a lot, does it not?
Wow. If we could get that in New York. It's just amazing, because what we get in New York is we get the information that our investigators can uncover, and then at the time of jury selection we get police reports. So it's almost like you're going in somewhat blind, and in Florida you get reports and you get the testimony in advance. It is just an enormous advantage.
Yeah. He still seemed to be searching, though, and that's probably a tactic, and you tell me. There were a couple of questions there. For instance, so she said this to you, didn't she? So she said this to you, didn't she? Now, if he had a chance to talk to her and interview her before she came to court, he would know answers to those questions, but he was asking them to get kind of the words out there, even though the witness said no, she never said those things to me.
Right. Well, he's trying to have an impact on the jury just through his questions as well. And at the same time, if he knows that something was actually said during the deposition and she's going to contradict herself, then he uses it as an opportunity to show the jury that she's not being completely truthful. Yeah. But he's also, you know, as we discussed earlier, he's also using this as an opportunity to do an informational cross, to let the jury know that the defendant charged with this, you know, serious murder also had a different side. She was caring, she was compassionate, she was loving, she was protective. The protective end comes in, and it also ties in with the questions that he was just asking concerning she would die for you, when it comes down to what was happening in that hotel room when there was a conversation in which the defendant was being told that the witness was suicidal. Right. So what would the defendant do? Is the defendant willing to fall on her own sword? Would she be willing to make a confession better than it ordinarily would be, because she thought that her lover was inclined to kill herself? Yeah. And that's probably where the defense is going with that, at least in part.
Yeah, you know, there was an interesting interaction there between the defense attorney there and Tyra Moore, and that has to do with when he was asking her about, she had told you that he says to the witness, Eileen Wuornos told you that every time she went out to do what she did, and you knew what she was doing, she said she was abused. She makes sure to correct him and say, verbally, not physically. The first thing that came to my mind was that she was working for the prosecution and didn't want there to be any misconception or any confusion, because it might affect whatever deal or whatever, conversations that she had with the prosecution. That was the first thing that ran through my mind. What about yourself?
It's hard to be a witness. It really is, especially for someone like Miss Moore, who hasn't done this before. You're up there, you're testifying in front of other people, and there are expectations. You have your own expectations, you have your own desires. You're trying to get into the minds of the prosecutors whose team you're on. You have to deal with their expectations as well. And this is how a witness can hurt your case, by trying to help. In a situation like that, where the defendant has told her that she has been raped and she has been attacked, and the witness has also acknowledged that the defendant told her that this was a dangerous business, and that every time out there, you know, any reasonable person would know that there is some danger in being out there by yourself, having sex with truckers and other people paying. But then to come back and say, well, she only told me that she had been verbally abused, there's really just no need for that kind of hedge. And I think that hurts her. I don't think it destroys her or cripples her by any means, but in that regard, I think you're right. I think that she's trying to find out where she's supposed to be, instead of just trying to let it flow.
Yeah, and certainly at its worst, it raises questions with the jury. Well, Rob, I want to thank you very much for being with me this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Unfortunately, our time is up, and my original words still stand. If I'm ever in trouble, you are the guy I'm going to call, man. I'm definitely serious about that. The first guy you're going to call, right?
I got promoted.
All right. Well, anyway, right now we're going to have to end this and wrap this up. June Grasso will be taking the anchor chair, taking you through the rest of the afternoon. Again, we'll be covering this trial over the next couple of days, so you'll want to stick with us. Much, much more to come right here on Court TV.